Hello and welcome to another episode of Green Time. I'm your host, John Hickey from the Missouri Sierra Club. And if you're like me, you've wondered, what is it with all the solar panels that are popping up on my neighbor's roofs and this business and that roof? And does solar power make sense for me? And we've got two guests to help us understand that question who have solar panels at their residences, and they will tell us their experience. Let me introduce them. First, Joan Bray, lives in St. Louis County, who's had solar panels for how long?
A couple of years now, I think. It'll be 2 years this summer.
Okay. And then Mark Kalk, who lives in St. Louis City and has had panels for how long?
About the same time, two and a half years.
Okay. So long enough to get a couple of annual cycles in to see how they go.
Yes.
That's right.
So we're going to talk with Mark and Joan and get their experience, but before we do that, we're going to see a short video called The Cost of Coal that looks at how we're currently getting the bulk of our electricity. Take it away.
Tearing down the complete mountain, at least probably halfway of the mountain, taking up to 400 or 500 feet of the mountain and just hauling it off into the valleys. And it just leaves a wasteland that's not fit for anything but rattlesnakes.
A lot of times when me and Mom go out and come back and I come up this road, particularly after dark, and just see how area that it is, makes you feel sad,
My mother's sister is in remission. She has cancer. My mother's brother died of cancer. My godmother, who lives across the street, also passed away, and she died of cancer. My mother passed away in 2003 from lung cancer. My mom was a healthy person. She was a nurse. I'm sorry.
If you circle around in this community, you'll see a lot of people on oxygen, cancer, but all of us are affected by the cold, by the fumes.
Here's my 5-year-old granddaughter who has it ever since she was 2. I have a grandbaby that's 1 and an infant that has asthma that needs to be on a nebulizer. Watching my kids not being able to breathe is hard because it can kill you.
Unbelievable stuff that was coming off the hills. I mean, this whole area, probably 3 square miles where the power plant is, the ponds is, and the ash dome. It was like a monstrous plume of this gray stuff just blowing everywhere. It seems to be, unfortunately, the norm that a lot of people die too soon and too young.
Where do people's diseases come from? Exposure to these elements. Why can't he, breathe better? It just makes me wonder, will I be here? My lungs, if they don't hold up. I want to be here for my son.
What if we were served a side of truth?
I'll take a super bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich.
Okay, that'll be meat from a pig who can't even turn around, an egg from a bird kept in a cage so small she can't spread her wings, and the milk of a cow whose calf is taken at birth to make veal. Ma'am?
Since 1990, the Gateway Green Alliance has worked on environmental and social justice campaigns in St. Louis.
The Gateway Greens have brought dedicated activists to speak at Black and Green Wednesday programs, the annual Pesto Feast, Martin Luther King Day, May Day, and Kwanzaa celebrations.
The Gateway Green Alliance is best known for opposing genetically contaminated foods. We invite activists and scholars from around the world to participate in safe food action and bring their creative art.
We need your support to keep going. Please send your $60 membership check or your $30 low-income check. Best of all, come to a Black and Green Wednesday program, 7:30 p.m. on the first Wednesday of the month at Legacy Books and Cafe.
Welcome back to Green Time. So you can see from that video that the way we're generating the bulk of our electricity here in Missouri has got lots of problems because burning coal pollutes the air, pollutes the water, warms the planet. Solar panels do not do those things, and we're going to find out what two Missourians have found with their solar panels. So let me start with you, Joan. What's been your experience?
Well, it's been terrific. We live in a house in University City, and fortunately, our house backs up onto Forest Park Parkway. Only because of that do we not have trees shading too much of our yard to have solar panels. That's you know, when you live on a parkway, you think, wow, is it good or bad? Well, this is great because we get solar panels. So anybody driving down the parkway can see our solar panels. We have enough panels to not do our whole house because it's a narrow lot, you know. But we have enough panels that we've cut our electric bill by about 25%. So it's we put our panels in. We got the rebate and the tax credits, and our payout for what we had to spend is going to be about 4 years.
Wow.
So it's been very cost effective for us, and we're just delighted to be able to produce our own energy, because ultimately, you know, as your video shows, we've got to get off of fossil fuels, and you know, we've got to have different contributions of ways to produce energy, and we love the fact that we're doing that in our own little space.
Good for you. Good for you. Mark, your experience.
Well, surprisingly, it's been minimal because the panels went up. The company we used was superb. The area we live in is Lafayette Square, so it's a historic district. And so we can't have the panels visible from the street. So unlike Joan's situation where you can see them, you can't see them anywhere around our house from street level unless you're in a helicopter. So we even kind of forget they're up there. And probably the biggest experience or impact that they have on our lives is whenever we get a utility bill, because it's very low. With the solar panels, we're generating 50% of the power that we need.
Wow.
And because we also have geothermal heating and cooling, and we did a lot of insulation, we've actually cut on an equivalent house that doesn't have all those things. We've cut our energy use by 80%. So we're down to like maybe just a minimal 20%. And all of those systems will be paid off in less than 8 years. And we're already 2.5 into it. So 5 years from now, free energy.
Wow. And in Lafayette Square, is it an older house you're in or in newer?
Well, it looks like it. That's another one of the regulations, is that the house must look like the rest of the houses in that area. But it is actually a newer house. We built it about 4 years ago and installed these systems. So we've never lived in it without these systems.
So you had the advantage. You were able to build the new systems right in as you built the house.
That's correct, yes.
Joan, your house, existing house or a new house?
Ours is built in 1915. So ours, unlike so many others that in our area who were able to put them on the rooftop, we couldn't put it on the rooftop. Ours is a ground mounted, and that's why you can see it just over our fence in the back of our yard. And I want to say this, that this, even 2 years ago and before that when we were working on this, a lot of the multiple municipalities had not dealt with people bringing solar panel plans to them, and we didn't know what all the bureaucracy was going to be, and we were concerned about that. But University City, while we didn't always know what was going on, I think they were sort of figuring out how to do things, and ultimately they were very supportive and wanted to help. We had to get a variance on our to get a little closer to the fence than ordinarily allowed, and that worked beautifully. And one of our neighbors came to testify at the hearing that we had, and I was a little, like, when I saw him come in the room, I thought, oh great, here come the neighbors. But he came in, and his point was, there was a period of time a few decades ago when cities had to deal with, what do we do with all these air conditioning units sitting outside of everybody's houses, and how do you write the rules for those? And he said, we really have to focus on getting our city so that these alternative energy sources can be accommodated in a way that makes it good for everybody. And I was really appreciative of that comment, because it helped make everything easier for us. So it was an interesting journey of all the little things you have to do and approvals and stuff, but it really worked, and we are just and it's there aren't any moving parts that you have to worry about. It's it just sits out there and takes in the sun, and it's fun because
which is free.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely.
No one's figured out how to charge for the sunlight now.
No,
it's free.
And with the electric company, with Ameren, you get to see your charts of how much sun you're getting every day, and you get all the graphs, and you can watch on your computer what's happening with your electrical production.
Wow.
Yeah.
In the city of St. Louis, much bureaucracy with zoning or whatever to...
Well, there was in the building of the house itself, but for the solar, the main requirement was that it not be visible from the street. And I don't know if people know what a parapet wall is, but it's the sort of a wall like above the roof line. If you go to Lafayette Square or anywhere in the city, there's a lot of those kind of houses, and the panels are behind that.
So they are up on the roof, they're just not visible, but that's about Lafayette Square than about the whole city of St. Louis regulations, I'm assuming.
Yes, well, it's a historic district, so the regulations are a bit more stringent. I wouldn't really be able to say for the rest of the city, but honestly, it was not a problem.
Okay, well, let's hold that thought. We're going to see a short video on another aspect of solar energy, which is it creates jobs locally. The coal that we burn in Missouri comes from Wyoming, but when you're putting up solar panels, they can't put them up in Wyoming. They got to put them up in your house, which means local jobs. Let's take a look.
Hi, my name is Jose Rojas. I'm 24 years old, born and raised in Southern California. My first job that I got into, I worked for an electrical contract company, and I worked for 6 months. And in that time being, when the economy went down, the business went down under. To be unemployed made me feel unsuccessful and unproductive. So at one point I felt like, what am I going to do with myself? I've been at Varengo for about 1.5 years, and I started as an installer, learning how to install from ground up the equipment, understanding the components, and understanding how to run things and how to make it work, basically. And I mean, within that time, within 6 months, I became a crew leader, and which is basically a lead installer to run my own jobs with the company. Having a job in the solar industry has given me control of my life, control of my money. Now I'm looking to buy a house, and it wouldn't be possible without the solar industry.
The Sierra Club is the largest and most influential grassroots environmental organization in the United States. If you care about clean air, clean water, and preserving open space, join the Sierra Club. In Missouri, the Sierra Club's projects include promoting energy efficiency and clean power sources like wind and solar, cleaning up air pollution by retiring dirty, outdated, coal-fired power plants, protecting Missouri's parks like the Ozark National Scenic Riverways. We need you to get more involved. To join the Sierra Club, make a donation, or to find out about Sierra Club events in your area, visit our website at www.missouri.sierraclub.org or call us at 314-644-1011.
We are the Junior Black Chamber of Commerce, an organization that's creating the business leaders of tomorrow. Catch our new television series, Harambe 101, on Green Time TV. We want to thank all the business professionals who gave up their time mentoring what promises to be the next generation of movers and shakers. You too can help save the future of our underserved communities by supporting the Junior Black Chamber of Commerce with your charitable contributions. And remember, what you give today will help make a brighter future tomorrow.
Send your donations to the JBCC at P.O. Box 35257, St. Louis, Missouri 63135.
Hello and welcome back to Green Time. I'm your host, John Hickey from the Missouri Sierra Club, and we have two guests with us today who have installed solar panels at their residences who are talking about their experience. Joan Bray and Mark Kalk, thanks again for being with us.
Sure.
And before the break, y'all were talking about what sort of hoops you had to go through with the city to get the zoning or the variance. And in both cases, it sounded like it was something you had to do, but it wasn't too onerous. Would that be a fair?
Absolutely.
That's true. The installer companies will help you with that process as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, they guide you through it.
Because they've done that dozens and dozens and dozens of times.
Yeah, and that's a challenge in St. Louis County with all the different municipalities, but they seem to be on top of it.
And out of curiosity, do either of your neighbors, if there are people in your neighborhood that you know that have solar panels that you can lean over the porch or the fence and talk about how many
We're pioneers.
watts?
Yes, exactly.
Pioneers.
Yeah.
Both pioneers,
And
okay.
we have fabulous neighbors because our neighbors had to cut down a tree for us.
Oh, wow.
And they did. They said, we don't want to stop your project. So they did. It was pretty amazing. True neighborly.
Have you found any of your neighbors interested in asking you, like, well?
Yes, several have, and several, a couple I know have got the had the folks come out to look at it. But again, if you're across the street from us, you've got so many trees, and you don't get back on the parkway. So it's just real hard. It's very hard in these older suburbs that with all the trees. Well, the city as well. I'm sure it has the same issues with all these beautiful trees. And of course, they say a tree is worth a lot more shielding your house in terms of energy than cutting it down to put up solar panels. You don't do that. I mean, you gain much more by having the tree there.
So if a tree is shading your house, don't cut it down
Don't
to put up
cut down
solar
to put solar panels, right,
Because then you're
exactly.
going to need to run the air conditioning all the time because you cut down the tree.
That's right.
Although I'll tell you the interesting thing on our interface that Joan mentioned about the computer where you can follow what's going on.
Yeah.
It will tell you how much carbon dioxide you have not put into the atmosphere.
That's right.
And then it tells you how many trees it would take to sequester or hold on to the same amount of carbon dioxide. So we've got a little forest going now of trees that are because of the carbon dioxide we've saved from the atmosphere.
Right.
And is that like a website you visit that's got these numbers, or is it like a display in your house?
It's a website.
It's a website, but you get your personal activity.
Yes, right.
So you could sit there and look at that screen, and if a cloud came over the sun, you could look and go, and then the cloud goes away.
Yes.
And
you can watch.
No, we have a utility pole that gets, and you see our solar production that goes through, back up again, and you can see when it gets the shadow of the utility pole.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, it's great.
That's great that you can see how much carbon dioxide you're...
Oh, yeah. It's a great...
They show you that.
Yeah, if only we had that in our house for what's happening with the coal we're burning.
Right.
A little video of like, here's how much carbon, here's how many mountaintops were removed today.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And any of neighbors of yours, Mark, who've... Well, I guess they can't see them, but if they know about them...
They can't, but because it was a new project, everyone knew the house was going up. So it was news in the neighborhood. And so since then, we've had one family put in geothermal, and another family is considering solar. My partner's work is considering a commercial installation on the roof, possibly. So, but mostly what happens is when people come over, they know it's an eco-friendly house, and so they ask questions about it, and it gives us the chance to tell them. I mean, most of the stuff is hidden. It's behind the walls and in the basement, so it's a lot of money hidden away, but you can still talk about it and tell people that the payback formula, the payback calculation, and then they start to be kind of inspired to maybe put in new windows or insulation or something. We don't know too many that have made the leap to solar yet, but hopefully.
Well, I can think of another couple in a historic neighborhood in St. Louis City in Soulard. Jim and Phyllis Young have got solar panels on their roof.
Yes.
And their house is, I think, 200 years old instead of 100.
Probably very old, yeah.
It's quite old, and they've got they've been able to work it. So it seems like regardless of the roof slope or the this or that, there's a workaround. Like in your case,
right. As long as you get good southern exposure, you can figure it out.
Right.
Yeah.
In total, was the whole process easier or harder than you thought? Let me start with Mark this time.
Oh my gosh, way easier. I mean, again, the company we used was excellent. They taught us a lot of things about what the system meant and what it involved in choosing the panels. They led us through, just sort of walked us through the incentive programs that we were eligible for. And they had 3 men come out on the crew, and in less than a day and a half, the whole thing was up. A couple of days later, they did some kind of magic back at the office, and we were running and have been since. It was very easy.
In your case, easier or harder than you thought?
Easier, actually easier. We had, we had a couple of little bumps along the way, and when it finally came up to sort of hooking it up, the electricity company was sort of they bumbled around on that a little bit, but we got it going. It's been, and ever since those first couple of weeks of getting it set up and going, it's been trouble-free.
There are no moving parts except for electrons, so it's very easy.
And your all's experience is 2.5 years old. And so I'd imagine that many of the people who've installed solar since then have benefited from that, so that the city halls are more used to dealing with the applications.
I suspect that's the case, I suspect that's the case. And the companies themselves who were, especially residential, were just kind of getting going back, So I think there's probably been a lot learned on everybody's part.
Yeah, I think the last 2 years, 2012 and 2013, have seen a huge jump in
and we had
solar installation.
when the incentives were active and available, made a big difference.
We're going to talk about the incentives in just a second. Let's take a short break to see a video that explains a little bit more about who the Sierra Club is, and then we'll be right back.
Hi everyone, I'm Michael Brune, Executive Director of the Sierra Club, the largest and most effective environmental organization in the country. The Sierra Club was established in 1892. And over the years, our members have helped to protect hundreds of millions of acres of some of the most beautiful places in the country. We have also been a part of almost every major piece of bedrock environmental legislation. But today, in the 21st century, the top challenge facing humanity is climate change, and it's the top priority of the Sierra Club. We want to do for clean energy what John Muir did for wilderness preservation more than a century ago. And we're already beginning to make great progress. Even though the climate is destabilizing before our very eyes with extreme weather like severe storms, wildfires, record droughts across the US and across the world, clean energy is taking hold like never before. Our members have helped to retire more than 150 dirty coal-fired power plants across the country. We've been able to strengthen a movement against fracking all across the US. We've helped to organize the largest demonstration on climate change in US history, and we're working every day to turn away from extreme fuels like dirty oil from the tar sands and embrace solar and wind energy. But through all of this work on climate and clean energy, the Sierra Club remains connected to its roots. Every year, we help to get more than 250,000 people into the outdoors. For many folks, it's their first wilderness experience. And Sierra Club members are working to protect some of the most important places in the United States, from the canyonlands of Utah to the Arctic up in Alaska to the Florida Everglades. None of this would be possible without you. The Sierra Club employs almost every strategy and tactic you can think of, from litigation to lobbying, grassroots organizing, social media, etc. All of this is done by Sierra Club members and volunteers. So join us. We're going to do great things together.
Hello and welcome back to Green Time. Our guests again, Joan Bray, Mark Kalk, both Missourians who have solar installed at their house. Thanks so much for what you've already taught us this episode. Let me give each of you a minute to leave a final message with our viewers. Let me start with Joan.
Well, John, one thing I want to mention is one reason that was so easy for us to get into this were the incentives, the rebates from the electric company, and the tax incentives, and the renewable energy standards that Missourians adopted in an election a few years ago. Well, the legislature passed a bill that's changed that, and I won't get into the details of it, but in fact, the program is weakened. In fact, it may actually fall apart, losing 2,800 jobs that have been produced by the solar industry in Missouri since the voters put in those renewable energy standards. So I would just say that folks who care about this, are concerned about the future, and are less use of fossil fuels and more renewables, should be talking to their state senator and their state representative and saying, get Missouri back on track to be able to keep up with the future of what's got to be in terms of energy.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you, Jane. Very important. Mark.
Well, as homeowners, you know, we look at the economics of this because we have to be able to afford to put these on our houses, right? And the incentives were a great help in doing that. But there's something that I think has equal weight to that, and it's the fact that at the point of use, our houses, Joan's and mine, we have 100% pure, clean energy. There's zero pollution. And in a few years, the systems pay themselves off, and then you have free energy for a long time. There are cheaper sources of energy than solar, but they degrade the environment, so are they really cheaper?
Great point. Okay, well that does it for another episode of Green Time. See you next week. Good night and good luck.